So today we'll learn about access modifier. Okay. Basically, access modifiers are the modifiers, right? Or keywords, we can say, which define a scope of the variable, method, and class. Okay. So what is a scope, right? So let assume, let's take a real life scenario. Your mobile phone, right? Which scope it is? It is a private scope because your mobile phone you can only use. Or is it public? It is private, right? The mobile phone is private, right? Similarly, your family car, right? So your father car is protected. Only your family member, like you, your brother, your sister, and all, you can use, right? Clear? And there is a property. Let us assume your family establish a water well, or what we call water distribution channel, kind of anything for public help and all. Your family organize or establish something, or your family have a park, a public park, right? So that public park will get access by everyone in your village or in your town, wherever you have created, right? So like that, in your family, if you take example, right, if your phone is having a private scope, right, and then if anything, television is having a default scope, whoever inside your house, right, they can access television, right? And similarly, we are having protected, let us assume a car, right? The car, only the people, right, who have like, if your father purchased a car, you can access that car, right? Your brother can access, like that, right? And if you have any public property, right, let's assume if you created, or you want to access any public property. So public property are like parks, schools, right? Those are public properties, so we call it its public scope. Why you call it public scope? Because anyone can access those, right? And private, your phone you can only access, right? No one can access other than you, right? So similarly, in Java programming also, we are having a access modifier. So its name only suggests access modifier. So how you are going to access those variables, methods, class? So when you use this modifier, it will change the way you are accessing it. If you make it private, you cannot access that what we call that method or property outside of the class, right? If you make it protected, only your child class object can access those property and method. If you make it public, anyone can access, right? Anywhere you can access. Clear? So similarly, we are going to study this. So if anyone asks what is access modifier, you can say access modifier can be used to specify the scope. What is scope? So there is a call a scope, or visibility also. Visibility. Visibility means, so let assume if you make it private, so outside of class, no one can see that. For them, it's not exist. They don't know that what is there inside a class if you make it private. So it is your visibility. Okay. And then we are having modifier. Okay. So right now, so private scope. So okay, let me light private. This is called a scope or visibility. So if you want to achieve a private visibility or private scope, which keyword you will use? You will use private. Remember this. Okay. Now there is a default scope. We'll talk about that. Default scope. Okay, so by default, if you see in last previous 20-25 classes that we had, when I define any method, I have not given public, private, protected, anything. So if you not give any keyword, by default it's default scope. Okay, for that no keyword or no modifier. It's a by default. If you not give private, protected, public, it will get treated as default scope. Okay. Now there is called protected scope. Okay. So protected scope. If you want to achieve a protected scope, you have to use protected keyword. And the last, public scope. For that, public. So if someone asks you, how many access modifier you have? You can say the private, protected, and public, and the default one, which is called default scope. Clear to you all? Right? Till now clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we'll see. Now you see this order, right? So this is called visibility, right? This is the visibility order we have. So first, the highest, the lowest visibility, which one is having? Private one is having lowest visibility. Then default, then protected, then public. So who is having the lowest visibility? Private is having lowest. After that, default. After that, protected. As the least strict one is public. Clear? So this is the order. So if you say which is like having a lowest visibility in the sense like no one, only inside a class you can access. So you will say that private, and little bit freedom you will give, then default. Little bit freedom protected, little bit of public. If you take example like Indian household in villages, some family are very strict. Let's take example of children. They will not talk with anyone. They will very reserved, right? So just assume that those are like they don't talk to anyone. They only talk within a family. They don't communicate. They do their work. They don't go out and all. They are very strict. So you can see that private. Then you see there is a normal family. They will talk sometime, not much interaction and all. But anyhow, they are like more flexible than the previous one. So we can consider them as a they are a default scope. They used to mingle, but little bit. Then there is a private scope, which they will mingle, and they also have it. They also talk. They are having good relation with into their 1 second their relatives, or like that they are in their family, right? So 1 second, my screen is visual, right? So
Yeah.
1 second for me, why it's okay. So for them it's like they easy to communicate, and they are having relations also in the village. So in their relationship they are going and they are having a good time. So those are like protected people, protected scope families. Public is like anyone can go to their home, they can have their mingle, they will share everything with everyone, right? So those family you can consider public scope. Similar logic will also implement in our what we call Java programming. Okay, let me start with private scope. We'll talk about private scope. Okay, so when you are using private modifier with the member of the class, right, then the scope of those member will be private scope. Oh, let me use this class student. Okay, so I'm having here public int roll number, private int fee. So I have defined fee as a private. So outside, okay, outside of class, anywhere you have main method, public static void main, outside of class, remember, if you create a student object equal to new a student, right? So with this object dot, when you do, you can access this one, this public one. You can have role here, but you cannot access fee. You cannot access this outside of the class scope. Clear to you all? Till now clear, right? We are
Yes,
we are
it's
talking,
clear.
yeah, we are talking about we are talking about private scope. Okay. Why we are talking right now access modifier? Because in the last class we have super to we are going after this only. When you use super, this which make more sense. Okay. So that is the reason I thought to finish this one first. Okay. Private scope is also called as class scope. So what we call it private scope? Class scope. Why we call it class scope? 1 second. So my writing is pretty bad. Okay. We call it. Okay. Okay. So private also we call it classes. Like someone can go on mute. Sushant, Sushant. 1 second. Okay, so we also call it class scope. Why you call it class scope? Because private member we can only access from the same class where it's declared. What it means? It means that here I declare private, right? Private int fee. So inside this curly braces start, curly braces inside this only you can access that one. Outside this class scope you cannot access. So that is the reason we call it class scope. Okay. Okay. Now the third point. Private member cannot be accessed from outside the class, not even from subclass. What it means? Let us assume if you are having a class A which have int fee and I make it private. Okay. Oh, and then I close. Then I have a class B who extend A. Okay. Let us assume here I am going to have method display. Okay, which just display system.out.println. If here I want to access this one, like this super.fee, if I do here super.fee, so this will not work. Clear? This will not work. This is display method super.fee. I have written here super.fee. Why? Because fee is a private and private only we can access within a class scope. Also in child class scope also we cannot access the parent class private variable. Okay, which is clear to you all. So private member cannot be accessed from outside the class, not even from subclass. So now in terms of inheritance, the fourth point, always remember. So whatever property your parents will have, you can inherit everything except the private properties. Private, if they declare something which is very private to them, you cannot inherit that. Let us assume their phone, they have locked that phone, right? So you cannot inherit their data, whatever the data they have inside their phone, right? If they pass you the password, then only. If they pass you the password means you become protected. The scope become protected. That is not private anymore. So many things that they can keep private, and that is the reason in Java also when you use a private keyword, child class cannot access those or cannot inherit those private properties. Clear to you all?
Yeah.
Making a point, child class cannot inherit private property. I think my writing is clear, like maybe you guys are able to understand. Okay. Okay. Now one more thing. The private modifier, right? See, I'm covering all the points. Okay. So you guys have to be very careful. Private modifier, we can only use, private modifier can be only used for member of the class, not for class itself. So this private we can use before variables and methods, not before class. Clear to you all? So what it means is, let us assume I have defined a class and constructor also you can use. Private modifier you can use before constructor, you can use before method, you can use before variables, but you cannot use, let me clean this, write it properly. 1 second. Let us assume I have a class class student. So I can write it here public. This is fine, but I cannot write it here protected. One second. Okay. 196. So you understand what I'm saying? Like protected key, sorry, protected, sorry, I have written protected. I got on call, other number. Okay, so here private. We cannot access private here. Clear to you all?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we learned today? We learned access modifier. We have total 4 type of access modifier for which 3 keywords are there. One is default. So for default scope there is no keyword. The first one is private, protected, and public. Private have list visibility, then protected, then public, right? Okay. In private, when you are using private modifier, the member of the class and then the scope of those member will be private scope. Private scope is also called as class scope. Private member cannot be accessed from outside of the class, and private modifier can be only used for member of the class, not for a class itself. Clear this 4 point? Then we'll move to the new modifier. Okay, if I ask you guys tomorrow class about private modifier, you can answer all this thing, right? Whatever we have discussed now. Now we are learning about default scope. Default scope. For this default scope, there is no modifier. We don't have any modifier. If you are not using any modifier, simple. If you are not using private, protected, and public, by default, what is the scope in Java? That is called default scope. Okay. So here the first point simply already I told you, like if you are not using any modifier, then the scope of those member will be default scope. So you can say that default scope. Okay. Now second point. Second point is default scope is also called as package scope. What is package scope? Package scope in the sense, let us assume if you are having a folder, right? Let us assume if you are having a folder, right? So inside the folder, any class or anywhere you can access your default properties. Okay, so it's also called a package. Default member can be accessed from the same class, subclass, or non-subclass from or from available in the or from the same package. Okay, so same package in the sense same folder in straightforward. Let us assume I am having a folder called let us assume test folder I have there. Inside I have 3 class. Okay, class A, B, C. In class A I have a default property. Okay, default property. So that default property will get accessed anywhere in this. So the visibility of this property easily it can visible from subclass, non-sub. Let's assume B is a subclass. So inside subclass also it's visible and non-subclass also it's visible. Clear? So this point you guys are able to understand, or should I explain one more time?
Yeah, I understood.
Okay, so I will explain one more time. So let us assume you are having a class A. Okay, it's have a protected property. Int mark. Then I am having a class B, which extend class A. So inside this class B, let us assume I am having a display method. So if I write system.out.println super dot I'm saying protected, sorry. Not protected. I was talking about default. Okay. So super dot, what is the name? Mark. So this is for subclass. Let us assume if you are having a non-subclass. Okay, non-subclass, class D. Okay. Inside having a method called public static PSVM, public static void main. You can create an object of this class A and you can access it. Class obj equal to new A, then obj dot, what is this? Mark. Clear? So that is only I'm talking about. So so I'm talking about a default member can be accessed from the same class, subclass, non-subclass, which are available in the same package. Clear? Same package in the sense all these three will be in same folder. Okay. Not outside the folder. Okay. Now, the third point. Default member cannot be accessed from outside the package. Default member will be inherited to the subclass available in the outside of package. Okay. Now, if you have default member, so let us assume your package, what package I have? Folder name test. Let us assume you are having two folder, test and test one. Here we have A, B, C. Here we have D class. So in test 2 in D class, anyhow you cannot access default variable or default method until D is a subclass or child class of that class where you have a default member which you want to access. You guys are able to understand this line? Kritika?
Yeah, I'm just listening. Yeah.
Basically what I'm saying, let us assume you are having two folders, test and test one, right? In test, we are having class A, B, and C. Inside that A, if I have a property called mark, which is default. Okay, so this we can only access inside this package. If outside the package, if you want to access, what you have to do? So basically, the subclass can access outside of the package. Okay, clear? So D should be subclass of A, then only you can access the mark. Okay.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Vin.
Okay. So default member cannot be accessed from outside of the package. Default member will not be inherited to the subclass available in outside the package. Sorry. I was explaining protected and I was talking about protected in default scope. So whatever I explain right now, right? This point. This is about protected, not about default. Okay. Let me default only access within same folder or package. Either it's subclass or non-subclass. Okay. Clear? Okay. So now for default, we learned three things. The first thing, it's a default scope. The second thing, default scope is also called as a package scope. The third thing, a default member cannot be accessed from outside of the package. Means outside the folder, you cannot access it simply within a folder. Either it's subclass, non-subclass, whatever. Clear? Okay. So just now before that, what I talked about, right? In another package you can access. I was talking about this protected. Okay. These two always make a confusion. Okay. So we should be clear about that. So this protected is similar to default scope. Whatever you learn about default scope, everything apply to protected. The only thing will get changed. What? A protected member can be accessed from the subclass which are available in the different package. So let us assume you are a package P1 or folder P1 where we have class A which have property phi, which is protected, which is protected. In another class P2, there is a class called B. Okay, inside the B can access this protected property in only condition if this B extend A, means B become the subclass of A, then only it will access a protected variable or protected method member outside of the package. Clear this point? So protected is similar to default. Whatever we talk about, everything apply. The only thing got change in another package, it will get access once you extend that class. Clear?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Other than that, whatever default scope are there, it's similar to default scope. So you just we can repeat the same thing. So if you declare any data member or method member with a protected, right? In the same class, you can access that one. Okay, that is the first thing. Another thing, in the same package, a same class also can access, a non subclass also access, and subclass also access. So basically, access by subclass, non subclass, and class itself. Okay, within a package. Within a package. Clear? So only this 2 point which makes sense to this. Clear? So it's like similar to default scope. The only thing is change this one. So if you're trying to access outside of the class, outside of the package. So what you have to do? You have to create a child class of that class and then you can access, right? So we can say that protected member can be accessed from subclass from the subclass which are available in different package. Clear? So now you guys are clear about what and all we can do with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now one more point you have to remember, and at the last I will ask you one question to all. Protected modifier can be only used for member of the class, not for class. Only for member, not for class. Clear? Okay. So now you guys have to tell me which and all access modifier we cannot use for class.
Protected.
Anyone? Kritika? Which and all modifier we cannot use for classes?
Uh, Protected or private?
Private.
Yes. Protected and private we cannot use for class. These two modifier we can only use for members of the class. Clear? So always remember, anywhere if you see people are using private protected at class level and they're asking you tell me the output, you just say you cannot use that one. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, share my screen. So you guys are able to understand, right?
Yes, we can able to understand access modifiers.
Okay. So we'll use it. We'll use it everything with this super and all, method overloading and all everything. So in that case, what happened? You will get a clear picture of that. That is the reason I thought like, let me finish this first. Okay. Now public scope or public modifier will learn. Okay. So public modifier. So anywhere when you are using a public modifier, right, with the member of the class, then the scope of those members will be considered as public scope. Okay. Public member can be accessed from anywhere. So there nothing to remember. Like when you ask what is the use of public, so if you define public, anywhere you can access it. Public modifier can be used for both. Which one? With class level and as well as data members. The only point you have to remember, this is the only modifier keyword which we can use for class level. Both the first one class and the second one class member. Clear? The first one class, the second one class member. Public modifier can be used for both. The first one is class, the second one is class member. So clear? So we're done with modifier. Any questions you guys have for modifier? Tomorrow onwards we'll do only sample programs and all. Okay, so not tomorrow, on Monday, 1 hour sample program where you use this super, this modifier, everything, and then we'll learn like what and all. If I define private, can I access with super? Can I access with this? If I make it private, can I use super keyword to access that method and all? So those things we'll learn. Basically, we'll practice. Okay. So clear to you all? Access modifier?
Yeah, it's clear.
Yeah.
Very good. So again, we'll have class. And okay, one more question I want to ask. Which is a more restrictive in all of this modifier? Which is more
Private.
restrictive? Anyone easily you guys can answer, right? This
Private is a
Private will
restrictive,
be
right?
Private.
private is more restrictive. Which is less restrictive?
public.
Public.
Public. So always remember that the public is less restrictive, private. In between, after private, you have default and then protected and then public. This order, if you remember, you can answer any question. Okay. And once we're done with practice, probably Tuesday we are going to have a method overloading classes. Okay. That is a very important one. It's a part of polymorphism as well. Okay. So we'll learn on Tuesday. Monday we'll do only practice. Okay. Thank you for joining. We'll connect on Monday. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.